There are predators all around you, and most people never see them. They move quietly, blending into the background, hiding behind charm, words and masks that look ordinary, even trustworthy. But their bodies always betray them. No matter how carefully they construct the perfect lie, no matter how polished their performance, the body leaks the truth. A shift of the eyes, a stiffness in posture, a fleeting gesture too quick to register consciously but powerful enough to trigger instinct. These are the cracks in the mask. And once you learn to read these signals, you stop being blind. You stop being prey. The danger that others only notice after it is too late becomes visible to you before it even begins. Machiavelli would say this is the ultimate advantage: to see what others refuse to see, to notice what others dismiss. Because power is not just about controlling others, it's about defending yourself against those who want to control you. Most people walk through life convinced that words carry meaning, that tone of voice and promises reveal intention. But predators use words as their camouflage, their weapon of misdirection. They thrive on distraction, on the collective belief that language is the only truth. Yet the body cannot fully obey deception. It always slips, and it is in those slips, in a clenched jaw, in a micro-expression of contempt, in the way someone's shoulders tighten when they prepare to dominate, that the truth reveals itself. If you know how to watch, you begin to see patterns. The predator preparing to strike before the first move, the manipulator revealing their intent before the first word, the dangerous individual exposing themselves in silence. This isn't paranoia. It's clarity, it's survival, and it's power. What I'm about to show you is not a trick or a guess. It's a form of vision, a way to pierce through the mask of civility and glimpse the raw intent beneath. Once you see it, you can never unsee it. Machiavelli understood the hidden architecture of power better than almost anyone in history. He knew that those who seek to dominate rarely do so openly, because power that shows itself too clearly becomes vulnerable. Instead, predators, whether in politics, business, or personal life, move subtly, calculating every step, disguising their true intentions behind words, promises, and appearances. In The Prince, he warned that rulers and manipulators must always project virtue, kindness, and loyalty, even when their inner motive is conquest and control. But here lies the paradox. The human body is not as obedient as the mind. While the tongue can be trained to recite lies, while the face can stretch into a rehearsed smile, while the persona can wear a costume of innocence, the body itself is less disciplined. Machiavelli would say that the predator betrays himself not in grand speeches, but in the smallest, almost invisible details. A momentary hesitation in eye contact, the angle of a hand resting too firmly, the calculated stillness that is more rigid than calm. All these are signs that the mask does not fully fit, and it is precisely in these cracks that you discover truth. This is why those who study power must study bodies as much as words. The predator knows how to deceive the collective mind, but he cannot fully silence the unconscious signals his own body emits. It is a kind of leakage, the body confessing what the mind is trying to conceal. Machiavelli's timeless lesson was that the wise observer never trusts appearances, never trusts words, never even trusts reputation. Instead, he observes patterns of behavior that escape conscious control. In the modern world, this means reading the unguarded signals of body language. To detect the predator, you do not need him to announce his plans. You only need to notice how his body announces them for him. The true threat never lives in words. It always leaks through the body. Words can be rehearsed, polished, manipulated into whatever form the predator needs to gain trust or disarm suspicion. A predator can tell you everything you want to hear, shape a perfect narrative, and even mimic emotions to appear sincere. But the body is far less obedient. Posture shifts under pressure, gestures reveal tension, and the eyes betray intent long before the mouth speaks. These are not random quirks. They are the signals of survival, the hidden vocabulary of human nature that bypasses conscious control. The predator can control the stage, but he cannot fully control his own muscles, his breathing, or the instinctive flashes of expression that arise from the unconscious. This is why observing body language is not some secondary curiosity. It is a direct survival strategy. To read the body is to see beyond the mask. It is the skill that allows you to detect hostility before it manifests, manipulation before it closes in, and danger before it strikes. Machiavelli would argue that power belongs not to the loudest voice or the most convincing speech, but to the one who sees clearly what others are blind to. The predator counts on your blindness, on your willingness to accept words at face value. But when you watch the body, you step outside of his game. You begin to notice the signs that most people overlook. The false smile that never reaches the eyes, the hand that hovers possessively over space, the stillness that feels more like coiled aggression than calm. This is not paranoia. It is not fear. It is the discipline of strategic perception, the sharpening of awareness so that you are no longer an easy target. To see the body is to read reality without translation, without illusion, without the filter of persuasion. And once you train your eye to see, you cannot be fooled so easily again. This awareness is power. Society trains us from birth to trust words, to believe appearances, to evaluate people based on what they say rather than what they reveal unconsciously. We are conditioned to focus on polished speeches, charming smiles, and the performance of confidence, as if these were reliable indicators of truth. In schools, workplaces, and even relationships, we are rewarded for listening politely and accepting the surface narrative. But this collective conditioning is precisely what the Machiavellian predator exploits. He thrives in a world where most people confuse language with reality. He knows that the crowd is captivated by rhetoric, by stories, by carefully crafted illusions. He does not need to be genuine. He only needs to be convincing. And as long as the majority remains asleep to the silent language of the body, his power remains unchallenged. Here lies the critical contrast. The naive observer is trapped in the verbal narrative, while the awakened one reads the invisible signals beneath it. The naive hears the promise of loyalty and sees the appearance of charm, but the awakened notices the subtle tightening of the jaw, the micro-expression of contempt, the posture of dominance hidden in plain sight. To the crowd, the predator looks persuasive. To the conscious observer, he looks exposed. This difference is not about intelligence, but about perception, about where one chooses to place attention. The collective ignores the body because it is inconvenient to question appearances, but the individual who dares to see beyond words gains a silent advantage. They are no longer playing the game of rhetoric. They are playing the deeper game of truth. And in that game, the predator loses his greatest weapon, invisibility. By seeing what the masses ignore, the awakened person steps one move ahead, transforming from potential prey into a strategist who cannot be easily deceived. This is the divide between the unconscious majority and the rare few who learn to see. Imagine sitting across from someone who smiles warmly, but something feels off. Their lips curve upward, yet their eyes remain cold, unresponsive, almost predatory. That is not a real smile. It is a mask, a calculated gesture meant to disarm you, while their body betrays the absence of genuine warmth. This is the predator's first mistake, forgetting that authenticity is not manufactured by muscles around the mouth, but by the subtle synchronization of the entire face. Or think of the executive about to close a ruthless deal. He sits in the boardroom, posture stiff and unyielding, projecting false calmness. To the untrained eye, it looks like confidence. But to the awakened observer, the tension in his shoulders, the unnatural stillness in his hands, the slight forward lean of his torso reveals something else entirely, a predator preparing to strike. These are not gestures of ease. They are the body's way of bracing for manipulation. Consider too the politician standing at a podium, delivering promises in polished language, but scanning the audience with eyes that do not seek connection. His gaze moves not like a leader seeking trust, but like a hunter sizing up prey, calculating weaknesses, measuring responses. The words may inspire, but the eyes betray the intent to dominate, not to serve. History is filled with such examples. Powerful figures, from dictators to corporate tycoons, often betrayed their intentions in the way they carried themselves. Their clenched fist disguised behind a desk, a jawline that hardened whenever power was questioned, a restless glance when confronted with truth. These signals were always visible, yet ignored by the masses who listened only to words. Even in personal relationships, the same patterns appear. The partner who insists on love but displays subtle contempt in facial micro-expressions. The colleague who offers cooperation but leans too far forward, invading space, signaling hidden aggression. The body cannot fully conceal what the mind designs, and those who learn to read these signs gain a weapon that is both silent and decisive, the ability to detect predatory intent long before it turns into action. The body is the battlefield where mask and truth collide. Every predator knows how to craft words, how to design appearances, how to wear the perfect costume of virtue or charm. But beneath the surface, their body carries the imprint of their true intent. The shadow always leaks out, no matter how carefully concealed, and it leaks in non-verbal signals that cannot be fully disciplined. A fleeting micro-expression of contempt, the subtle narrowing of the eyes, the posture of dominance that appears unconsciously when they sense an opportunity. All of these are the fingerprints of the predator's shadow. They are not accidents, they are archetypal betrayals of intent. And this is where the Machiavellian insight becomes most powerful. The one who can read these signals does not just see reality more clearly, he controls the entire arena of interaction. He is no longer surprised by deception, no longer blindsided by manipulation, because he perceives the strike before it happens. In politics, in business, in relationships, the ability to notice what others ignore is the difference between being prey and being strategist. Machiavelli understood that the game of power is never won by those who react after the attack. It is won by those who anticipate, who recognize the subtle movements of the predator before the narrative even begins. To see the body is to see the future. The collective, blind to these signs, remains trapped in the performance of words easily manipulated, dragged into illusions and promises. But the individual who reads the body steps outside that collective hypnosis. Understanding body language becomes not just a skill, but a form of liberation, a way of escaping the manipulative machinery that governs societies. When you can decode the signals of tension, dominance, and deceit, you move beyond appearances into the raw architecture of human behavior. You are no longer guessing, you are seeing, and in seeing, you become untouchable to the very predators who depend on your blindness. The predator's greatest weakness is not his words, but the body he cannot fully command. Words are crafted to seduce, arguments polished to deceive, reputations built to mask intent. But the body continues to whisper the truth, often screaming it for those with eyes trained to see. And this is the revelation. True power does not come from louder speech or dramatic confrontation. It comes from silent perception. To read the body is to carry an invisible weapon, one that requires no open conflict, no exposure of your awareness, only quiet observation. When you see the predator's posture shift before he makes his move, when you notice the flicker of contempt across his face before he utters words of charm, when you feel the unnatural stillness in his presence that signals coiled aggression, you have already won. You do not need to challenge him publicly or accuse him directly. Knowing is enough. Awareness itself becomes defense. It allows you to step aside before the trap closes, to refuse the bait before it's offered, to shield yourself without ever revealing that you saw through the performance. This is why Machiavelli prized perception above all, the ability to see reality as it is, not as it is presented. In this lies the kind of power most people overlook, power that moves quietly, invisibly yet decisively. The predator depends on blindness, on a stage where the audience only hears words and never sees signs. But when you are awake, you cannot be seduced so easily. You carry the advantage of foresight, of discernment, of silent certainty. And the beauty of this power is that no one else knows you have it. You are never forced into battle, because the battle is won before it begins. To read the body is to disarm the predator without lifting a finger. It is to hold the invisible shield that both protects and empowers, a shield built not from confrontation, but from clarity. Words deceive, bodies reveal. This is the simple, unshakable truth at the core of every interaction where power and manipulation are at play. A predator may craft speeches, polish lies, or cloak himself in charm, but the body cannot hold the disguise forever. The predator can act, but his shadow leaks through posture. His intent oozes through the smallest cracks, the tightening of a jaw, the flash of contempt in the eyes, the stillness too rigid to be calm. To see these signs is to escape his game, to step outside the illusion that words create, and to place yourself in a position of control without ever needing to confront him directly. This is not about suspicion or paranoia. It is about learning to see what most people ignore. The invisible truths that the collective overlooks because it is easier to listen than to watch. Machiavelli's wisdom becomes clear here. Power does not belong to those who shout the loudest or who tell the most convincing stories. Power belongs to the one who can see the hidden patterns, the subtle betrayals, the truths that live beneath performance. Whoever reads the invisible dominates the visible. This is the logic of survival and strategy, the difference between being manipulated and becoming the one who cannot be fooled. The masses are captivated by words, enchanted by appearances, locked into the surface of social games. But the few who look deeper notice the betrayals of the body, and with that awareness they change the terms of the interaction. They are no longer pawns moved by persuasion. They become players who see the whole board. Think about how this shifts everything. When you listen only to words, you are trapped in the predator's theater, reacting to illusions. When you read the body, you step backstage and see the machinery for what it is. The mask no longer blinds you. The predator can speak, but you hear the silence beneath his words. He can smile, but you see the tension hiding inside the gesture. He can posture as calm, but you sense the aggression coiled in his stillness. And because you see it, you are free. You are free to disengage, to refuse the role he prepared for you, to remain untouched by his manipulation. That is real power, the kind that requires no aggression, no retaliation, only perception. The philosophical synthesis is simple but profound. Appearances are weak, bodies are honest. Shadows cannot be silenced. They always reveal themselves in the physical form. And those who learn to watch with precision, who sharpen their perception to notice what others miss, rise above the games of deception that rule the collective. The predator thrives in blindness, but collapses in the presence of vision. To master this vision is to carry a form of authority that is quiet, invisible, and unshakable. It is to become untouchable in a world filled with hidden hunters. Machiavelli would call this the ultimate advantage. Not brute force, not endless debate, but silent clarity, the power of seeing reality before anyone else does. Which of these signals have you already noticed in people around you? Perhaps it was the smile that didn't reach the eyes, the sudden rigidity in someone's posture before they made a move, or the way a gaze lingered too long, not with warmth, but with calculation. These details might have unsettled you, even if you couldn't explain why at the time. Share them in the comments. Your experience may open someone else's eyes, helping them recognize the same patterns before they are caught in the predator's game. Awareness grows stronger when it is shared, and your insight could be the very thing that protects another person from being deceived. This is not just about watching others, it is about strengthening your own vision. Every time you observe and name what you see, you step further out of the collective fog, where words dominate, and into the clarity of perception. That clarity is not something society will teach you, because society is built on performance, masks, and appearances. You have to claim it for yourself, to train your own eyes and trust the instincts that most people ignore. And that is what this journey is about. Learning to walk through life with silent armor, not by fighting but by seeing. If this resonates with you, if you want to continue sharpening this perception and developing the quiet strength that Machiavelli would call the highest form of strategy, then subscribe and stay close. This channel is dedicated to exploring the hidden dimensions of power, not the loud, obvious displays that everyone notices, but the subtle forces that shape interactions, relationships, and entire societies. Here we study the weapons that do not clang or roar but whisper, the body that betrays, the silence that dominates, the gaze that unsettles, the presence that cannot be denied. In the next videos, I will reveal how to use silence, gaze, and presence as invisible weapons, exactly as Machiavelli would. These are not tools of violence or manipulation, but instruments of awareness, ways of protecting yourself and commanding respect without ever raising your voice. To master them is to carry power that no one else can touch, a power that doesn't need recognition to exist. So join this path, share your insights, and step into the circle of those who choose to see. The predators are always there, but once you learn the art of perception, they can no longer touch you. You are no longer prey, you are awake, equipped with the invisible authority of awareness.